So, yesterday I was disposing of Adama's boyfriend's body in my back garden in the middle of the night because if I can't have her, no one will. And then a thought occurred to me. It's really sad when writers have a great concept story but lack the vision and the foresight to make it into something spectacular on the big screen. So, with that in mind, I'm going to start a new series that I'll be doing from time to time called Hara Fixes. And in each episode, I'll take a character or plot thread that I consider to be badly executed and rework it into something that achieves the same objective. Now, as tempting as it may be for me to rewrite an entire movie, I won't do that because that will be considered plagiarism, and I respect the law far too much to do that. So the rule here is I have to keep the basic plot structure and character arc. All I can do is tweak some of the details ever so slightly. So let's begin, shall we? And what better place to start than Reverend Mr. Timmy from Breath of Life? Now, don't get me wrong, Breath of Life was a good movie, but one thing that really fell down for me was the treatment of Timmy. The man who was good at everything was reduced to a sulking old man who was a side character in a movie about him, overshadowed by two generic young lovebirds, which, in my opinion, if you scrap their love conundrum from this movie, it would have done better. Now, in order to understand what kind of character Timmy should be in Breath of Life, we have to first consider what led him here. Who is this man? Where did he come from? What kind of personality does he have? Now, based off of a narration from the movie, Timmy is an amazing man, an Olympian, and above all, a Navy war veteran, and finally a reverend as he retreats to a quiet life in the Nigerian countryside with his wife and kid. Timmy comes off as a man who is a fighter and a logical thinking man who will not sulk around but rather double down and keep moving forward regardless of his pain. And above all, he would never put his family in harm's way if he knew he couldn't win. Now, in order to further Timmy's character, we have to address the plot of the movie. Like I said in my previous video, the movie has a lot of amazing concepts that wasn't fully utilized because the writers lacked the vision and talent to work with an amazing plot device. And what are these plot devices or concepts that I keep yapping on about, you may ask? Well, number one is spirituality. The movie tries to hammer down a theme of spiritualism about it. As we saw in the movie, he tried to kill himself several times, but he just would not die. Number two, post-colonial era. We all know the shit that went down in post-colonial Nigeria right after she gained her independence. The race for power and angry colonialists who were appalled at the Queen for granting their independence and were desperately clinging on to whatever power they could get, and were actively silencing anyone who spoke up against them. And this ties in perfectly with the worldwide accusations that the British Empire politically decimated every country they ever annexed after granting them independence. Case in point, the partisans of India. Number three, Timmy as a man of many talents and a war veteran. So, armed with this plot device, let's thread a story that will remain faithful to all concepts. A story that I have no doubt will please fans and give the movie a satisfying conclusion. So, Timmy comes back home with his wife and kid, and all is well until he testifies as a witness against Baby Fire. But Baby Fire gets acquitted and proceeds to kill Timmy's wife and kid, who are British citizens. Remember, that will come in handy later. So, Timmy, being the war veteran, doesn't take this laying down. So he proceeds to kill all of Baby Fire's men, one by one, until he gets to Baby Fire himself and kills him in the most brutal way possible, slowly and painfully. But he realizes Baby Fire was just a pawn the entire time. So he lays an ambush for the two white men who were calling the shots and by extension were responsible for the murder of his wife and kid. And this is where he learns of a great evil perpetrated by them, using Baby Fire as their instrument of destruction. They instructed Baby Fire, they basically paid him to kill any anti-colonialist who raised their voices against them. And so, realizing that taking them out is no easy task, as they are heavily guarded, but with his years of military combat techniques under his belt, he makes short work of the guards and kills the white men. But this doesn't sit well with the British government, as Timi is put on trial. But the trial is fair and just, as they found the men guilty for murder, and Timi is free to go. But this doesn't bring him peace. He tries killing himself several times with different methods, but he doesn't just die. Somehow he survives. So he retreats to a life of solitude, shutting everyone out. He lost faith in God and sealed off the church, never to be opened. And in comes Elijah, an enthusiastic young man with an undying love for God and a zeal to become a pastor. Initially, the two don't get along at first, but with time, Timi learns to open up to Elijah, and this once sad, rage-filled man smiles again. He opens up to people. He lets Elijah use his church. He begins to have fun and communicate with people. He's learned to move on from his pain and guilt. He's finally found peace and happiness after so many years. But then Elijah is diagnosed with chronic lung failure and he needs a transplant. Timi, distraught, goes to the church one more time to have a heart-to-heart with God. And in the process, he sees an image of his wife and kid. In that moment, he realizes the reason he's been alive all this while, the reason he just could not die, is so he could help Elijah. And so he goes to the hospital to talk to him one last time. But Elijah is unconscious, so he writes a letter and gives to the doctors for when he wakes up. So Timi wills every possession of his to Elijah and gives his lungs to him. After a successful surgery, Elijah wakes up and asks about Mr. Timi. And the doctors say nothing but hand him the letter, which goes as such. Dear Elijah, if you're reading this, then the surgery is successful and you're alive and well. I know you're confused right now, but I donated my lungs to you. I'm an old man. I've run my race and you're young. You have your whole life ahead of you. Thank you for coming into my life, making me see the good in this world. Thank you for helping me get rid of my guilt. My only regret is I never got to speak to you one last time. My lawyer will speak to you as I have willed every possession of mine to you. Goodbye, son. I'll always love you. As Elijah cries and the film ends. So this is my version and how I think the movie should have gone. A sad, emotional payoff to a well-constructed movie that does justice to all plot device presented in this movie. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. See you next time.